3 years ago, I was spending around $40 a month on fish oil capsules. I had been taking them every morning for years on the recommendation of my doctor, who told me my omega-3 levels were low and that fish oil was the most practical way to address that. I took them without questioning it, because that is what you do when a doctor tells you something and there is a product available that solves the problem in a convenient daily capsule. Then I started growing perilla. I had ordered a packet of seeds from a Japanese seed supplier because I wanted to try growing shiso for cooking. I had eaten it in Japanese restaurants wrapped around slices of raw fish, where I had always assumed it was decoration. It is not decoration. Japanese chefs have been placing it on sashimi plates for 500 years, specifically because the leaf contains compounds that inhibit bacterial and parasitic growth. The garnish is a food safety measure that predates refrigeration by centuries. That detail alone should tell you something about how much traditional Asian food culture understood about this plant long before Western science got around to measuring it. I planted the seeds in a corner of my raised bed in late spring. They germinated quickly, grew into handsome plants with large serrated leaves and deep purple undersides, and by midsummer I was harvesting leaves for salads, wraps, and soups. Then, in autumn, I let a few plants go to seed and drop naturally, cleared the rest, and mostly forgot about that corner of the bed. The following spring, without any action from me, that corner was full of perilla seedlings. I had not replanted. I had not bought more seeds. The previous year's plants had dropped their seeds. Those seeds had overwintered in the soil, and the crop had reinstated itself on its own schedule. That has now happened every year since. 3 years later, I have a permanent, self-sustaining perilla patch that cost me nothing and requires nothing beyond an annual harvest. And when I looked into the seed oil of the plant I had been casually growing as a cooking herb, I stopped buying fish oil entirely. Here is what perilla actually is, and why the omega-3 figure is worth taking seriously. Perilla frutescens is an herb in the mint family that has been cultivated across Asia for over 2,000 years. In Korea, it is called kienip and forms a central part of everyday cooking, used to wrap grilled meats, chopped into kimchi, and eaten fresh at almost every meal. In Japan, it is called shiso, and it appears in some form in virtually every traditional Japanese meal. In China, it has been documented in medical texts since around 200 AD, when the Sheneng Benkao Jing, the oldest surviving pharmacopoeia in human history, described using the leaves for respiratory ailments and the seeds for digestive complaints. A Korean royal physician named Heo Jun spent 15 years compiling the Dongi-bogam, finished in 1613, which documented 17 distinct medical uses for perilla. That text guided Korean physicians for 4 centuries. 500 million people across Asia eat perilla every single week. It is not an obscure traditional remedy. It is a staple food of one of the most populous regions on Earth. In Japan, during the Edo period, which lasted from 1603 to 1868, perilla cultivation reached 90% of farming households. Families grew it simultaneously for food, for medicine, and for lamp oil. Before electricity, Japanese villages pressed perilla seeds to light their homes. One plant serving 3 functions from the same soil is exactly the kind of efficiency that gets lost when food systems industrialize. Now the numbers. In 1991, researchers at the National Institute of Nutrition in India analyzed perilla seed oil and found alpha-linolenic acid concentrations between 54 and 64%. Alpha-linolenic acid is the plant form of omega-3 fatty acids. For comparison, flax seed oil, which most Western nutritionists describe as the best plant source of omega-3, contains around 53%. Chia seed oil contains around 58%. Both are sold as premium superfoods in health food stores at significant prices. Perilla seed oil contains 64%, the highest concentration ever measured in any plant species, and it self-seeds permanently in your garden after a single planting. The leaf nutritional profile is equally strong. Fresh perilla leaves contain 3.9 dendry of protein per 100 grams, which exceeds spinach and kale. Calcium content reaches 230 millimadras per 100 liters. Vitamin A concentration reaches 5,520 international units. The leaves also contain rosmarinic acid in concentrations higher than any other culinary herb ever tested, including rosemary, basil, and oregano. A clinical trial published in the Annals of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology in 2003 gave perilla extract to patients with seasonal allergies and found a 50% reduction in allergic symptoms in the treatment group. Rosmarinic acid inhibits the enzymes that trigger allergic responses. Korean and Japanese medical traditions had been observing this effect for centuries before a laboratory explained the mechanism. A 2010 study by Korean researchers found that diabetic patients consuming perilla leaf extract showed a 23% reduction in blood sugar levels after meals. Research published in the journal Biofactors in 2004 documented compounds in perilla leaves inhibiting tumor growth in laboratory studies. The specific molecule, perilla aldehyde, is found almost exclusively in this plant. The reason perilla remained largely unknown in Western food culture comes down to something straightforward. 4 different languages gave it 4 different names with no unified Western identity. Koreans call it kyanip, Japanese call it shiso, Chinese call it zisu. Botanists call it perilla frutescens, without a consistent name in Western cookbooks, grocery stores, or research databases. The plant had no consistent presence. Cilantro and coriander are the same plant, and Western food culture eventually unified those names. Perilla never received the same treatment. It remained foreign in every separate encounter, never familiar, never integrated. That fragmentation, combined with the fact that a self-seeding plant that can be cold-pressed with hand tools generates no repeat seed sales and no industrial processing revenue, meant it received almost no commercial promotion in Western markets. The practical result is visible in research funding. Search the major medical databases for fish oil and omega-3, and you will find more than 15,000 studies. Search for perilla and omega-3, and you will find around 400. That ratio reflects not the relative effectiveness of the two sources, but where research money flows. Fish oil is a $4 billion annual global market. It requires industrial processing, extraction, purification, encapsulation, cold chain shipping, and quality control infrastructure. Perilla seed oil can be cold-pressed in a backyard shed with a hand press that costs less than $100. The research gap is a funding gap, not an evidence gap. Here is how to grow it, which is the straightforward part. Perilla thrives in USDA zones 4 through 10, which covers most of the continental United States and equivalent temperate climates across Europe. It tolerates poor soil, handles drought once established, and grows in full sun or partial shade without significant loss of production. It is, by any practical measure, an easy plant to grow. Start seeds indoors 6 weeks before your last frost date, or sow directly into the ground after the last frost has passed. The seeds need light to germinate, so press them onto the surface of the compost rather than burying them. They are slow to start, taking 2 to 3 weeks to show, but once they are growing, they establish quickly. Space plants around 12 in a part, though they tolerate crowding without serious complaint. Water regularly through the establishment period of the first few weeks. After that, established perilla is largely self-sufficient in any climate with reasonable summer rainfall. It does not need feeding, it does not need staking, It does not need protection from most pests. It is, like all the best food plants, largely indifferent to your attention once it knows the ground it is growing in. Harvest leaves throughout the growing season by cutting them from the outside of the plant and letting the center continue to grow. Fresh leaves can be used immediately in salads, wraps, and soups. They taste like a complex combination of mint, basil, and anise, which is mild and versatile enough to work in both Asian and European cooking. Dry them for tea by hanging bunches in a warm, airy space for a week. The dried leaf makes a clean, slightly minty tea that Korean and Japanese households have drunk for centuries. For seed oil production, allow some plants to flower fully in autumn. The flower spikes produce between 1,000 and 4,000 seeds per plant, and around 85% of those seeds will germinate. Collect the seed heads when they are dry and papery by cutting the whole spike and letting it dry further on a tray indoors. Thresh out the seeds by rubbing the spikes between your palms and store them in a sealed jar in a cool, dry place where they will remain viable for 5 years or longer. To press oil, use a small hand press available from any homesteading supplier for under $100. Cold pressing preserves the omega-3 content, which heat degrades. A modest harvest of seeds produces enough oil to replace commercial supplementation for a full year. The oil has a rich, slightly nutty flavor and works well as a finishing oil in cooking or taken directly by the spoonful if you are using it purely as a nutritional supplement. The self-seeding is the part that changes everything about the economics of growing this plant. In autumn, after you have collected what you need for oil production and seed storage, allow the remaining plants to drop their seeds naturally. Do not clear the bed until spring. Those seeds will overwinter in the soil and germinate the following year without any action from you. The plant naturalizes to your specific ground conditions over 2 or 3 seasons and becomes increasingly reliable each year. Korean farming villages have documented perilla patches growing on the same ground for 10 generations from a single original planting. That is not an exaggeration of what this plant does. It is a description of its basic reproductive behavior. One planting decision creates a permanent food and medicine supply. That is the sentence that matters. The $40 a month I was spending on fish oil capsules is gone. The capsules were a processed, industrially produced product derived from fish caught in ocean fisheries, refined and encapsulated in a factory, and shipped to a supplement store where I bought them because my doctor told me my omega-3 levels were low. And that was the standard solution. It is not a bad solution, but it is a purchased solution to a problem that a self-seeding herb growing in a corner of a raised bed solves permanently for free. 500 million people across Asia already know this. They have known it for 2,000 years. The knowledge was always available. The plant is available right now from any specialist seed supplier, and increasingly from mainstream seed companies as Western interest grows. The seeds cost a few dollars for a packet. That packet becomes a permanent patch. That patch produces leaves for cooking and seeds for oil every year, without replanting, without purchasing, without a supply chain that needs to function perfectly to get nutrients into your body. Grow it once, it comes back every year. The omega-3 is there every autumn in the seeds. The leaves are there from spring through frost. And 10 years from now, when the patch has naturalized completely to your soil and the plants are larger and more productive than the ones you started with, you will still not have spent another penny on it. That is what permanent food infrastructure looks like. Not a supplement subscription. A plant that returns on its own terms every spring for the rest of your life. If this story changed the way you look at the potential of your own garden, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the ancient wisdom and history that modern systems have tried to bury. Let's grow a more self-sufficient future together. The next hidden treasure of nature will be revealed soon.